Hi, I'm Mark Mazzaferro, and it's time for another episode of The Works. And with us, as always, on The Works is Sean Cunningham, Public Works Director for the City of Vacaville. Sean, thanks for being here today.
Good morning, Mark. Good to be here.
It's good to be anywhere, you know? Some days you just feel that
true.
way. I got a little cold, so bear with me, folks. So today we're going to talk about a little project that's happening right at our doorstep of City Hall, and that's the Merchant Street narrowing. What is this project called? And before I say another word, what is this project? And tell us about this project here on Merchant Street.
All right. Well, it's Merchant Street Improvements is what we're calling it, for lack of a better term. There's a history to the project. It actually came to us as an ADA project. The City of Vacaville has an ADA advisory committee that Public Works chairs. And as you know, as a result of a lawsuit that was settled several years ago, that we set aside $25,000 a year to be spent in the public right-of-way for ADA improvements. And so that, coupled with some community development block grant money that we had through housing, there was a plan devised through the ADA Advisory Committee to improve accessible access along Merchant Street. And as you know, the sidewalk there is in front of Pacific Hardware and Pietro's. I'll call that the south side of Merchant Street, for lack of a better term, since it runs diagonally. Was in very poor condition as far as accessibility.
Well, yeah, and anybody who's been on that side of the street, it's narrow for someone just walking along normally.
Right.
You know, there's trees, there's poles, and the sidewalk is this wide.
Some of it's asphalt, some of it's concrete. Right.
The driveways are a mess. It's just a mess.
Right. And so that was how that's how it was born. And so from Walnut Street down to Elm, it started out as an ADA project. So the more we looked into it, there's issues with right-of-way. As you know, the parking lot for Pacific Hardware and Foster's, it's very, very tight as it is. And the parking lot basically butts right up to the back of the sidewalk. Well, we needed to widen the sidewalk by several feet. And so then what do we do? You know, what do we do with the parking lot? And we don't want to make a problem worse for the businesses in order to widen the sidewalk. It just so happened that I had changed office locations. So I had always sat on the back side of City Hall, and now I was sitting on the front, right on that front corner. And so all day long, I could see Merchant Street, particularly the driveway at Pacific Hardware, and literally.
So you went from the solitude of City Park to the busy
thoroughfare
of Merchant Street. Absolutely.
Right.
Anyway.
So literally, I'd sit out there, and all day long, I would hear and see near misses. People coming westbound on Merchant Street, stopping in that middle lane to turn into Pacific Hardware or wherever, and same thing turning out. So as we're trying to figure out what to do with the sidewalk, and I'm watching this obvious traffic issue that takes place daily on Merchant Street, I started thinking about, we're widening the sidewalk the wrong way. Why don't we push the sidewalk out into the street to get the width? That's going to narrow the street. Now, we could still leave the street 4 lanes. So we could widen the sidewalk as we're doing, and it could still remain 4 lanes. And in fact, in the future, it could go back to 4 lanes if that's what was needed. But based on, we started looking at traffic volumes and level of service and what the existing traffic is and what we expect it to be 20 years down the road. And honestly, 1 lane in each direction with some other improvements is more than adequate to handle the traffic on Merchant Street. So what we decided to do was to go with 1 lane in each direction and a middle turn lane to eliminate, so that people that are turning into those businesses can move into the middle turn lane, be protected, and
not back up traffic behind them.
Not back up, because really, as people are stopping, which happens a lot during the day to make the left turn, it's effectively 1 lane anyway, because everyone is either backing up behind them or moving into the single lane. So we felt that the middle turn lane would address a safety problem. There were probably, in the last 10 years, there were 25 collisions in that stretch between Walnut and Elmira, or Walnut and Elm Street. And, so we're looking at almost 3 accidents a year on average. So this will go a long ways towards eliminating those rear end and right angle accidents.
And that's mainly because of the folks turning into and coming out of that parking lot for those businesses, right? Because I don't know that it's that much of a problem on either side of that stretch of Merchant Street. Or is it?
Right. No, it's primarily, there's a significant, just with Pacific Hardware alone, but then you add in Foster's and Pietro's. But and then there's the businesses in that strip there by Pietro's, but there's a lot of traffic in and out of Pacific Hardware alone.
Right.
Sorry. But we are going to extend. The project is actually going to extend all the way down to Mason Street.
Oh, okay.
So as we started looking at the striping and how we were going to transition things, so that we don't have 2 lane drops happening, we thought, you know what, this would be a better operationally. It will be better just to extend it all the way down to Mason Street. So,
well, and that's one of the reasons we're talking about this today, because that's the question I get is why are they doing just that one section? Shouldn't they just do the whole thing? And now you're telling us that's exactly what's going to happen.
That's what we're going to do.
Okay.
And so essentially from Mason Street, so if you think about it, on Mason Street, there's 1 lane in each direction. On Merchant Street in the downtown, there's 1 lane. So there'll never be this transition where you're going from 1 lane to 2 lanes back to 1 lane. And so basically, if you're coming from the east, whether it's on Mason Street or Merchant Street, you'll be 1 lane into 1 lane. And then as you get close to the freeway in Alamo Drive, it opens up to 4 lanes.
Makes perfect sense. See, that's why we have guys like you, engineers, because, hey, man, if I was sitting there on the cocktail napkin trying to figure this out, we'd have, overpasses and stacked, it wouldn't work out very well.
Well, and believe me, we did. I mean, that's something that, this is a major change. And, what you don't want to do is you don't want to narrow a street for the sake of narrowing a street and then end up with traffic problems. So we looked carefully. The traffic there now, the capacity, it's about half the capacity of a 1-lane street. There's about 500 cars a day in the peak, or 500 cars an hour in the peak direction, in each direction. So the capacity of a lane is somewhere around 900. So then the next thing to do is, well, what's going to happen in 20 years? We looked at that. Obviously, the downtown's pretty well built out, so you wouldn't expect there to be a huge increase in traffic in the downtown over 20 years. It increases about 300 vehicles. So up from 500 to 800, we're still well under a level of service C capacity. So the other improvement that we're making is the traffic signal at Walnut. That's currently a 2-phase signal. So it's green on Merchant, and then it's green on Walnut, and that's it. There's no left turn. There's no protected left turn pockets. That we will now have protected left turn phasing on Merchant Street, which also,
that's good.
Especially with Cairo School, right there on Elm, it's going to help. That's going to help the level of service a lot as well in the operation.
Well, I know you weren't around. I'm guessing you weren't around when this street was designed, but when you get down to where Mason is, and then there's Merchant, and then there's Parker, and then that is, I've been driving up and down that street for 10 years, and I still get mixed up on which lane I'm supposed to be in, depending on where I want to go. I see people all the time. There's not a whole lot we can do to fix that, is there? Because you'd have to make major changes to adjust that, or would you?
Right. That's a unique intersection. It's a challenge. A challenge to try to signalize it, to try and phase the signaling. That we're not changing. The striping at that intersection will remain pretty much what it is today. Okay. So you'll be able to make the left onto Mason or Parker and go straight. What is it? Straight to turn?
I don't know. That's exactly.
Go straight to turn.
I just wait for an arrow to come on, and if that's the direction I want to go, I go.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's not a lot.
Yeah, that's a bad one.
To do with that.
Every town's got at least one of those. That's ours.
I think so.
So listen, I grew up in San Francisco. Forget
That should
it.
be easy for you.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why I'm so challenged by that one little intersection there. All right, well, that's good. So this project is going on right now. All those businesses are open over there.
Everything's open. All the driveways. We've got the contracts written so that there would only be one driveway down at any one given time. And Lister Construction is the contractor. They've been doing a great job communicating with the businesses and adhering to the traffic controls. So it should be a very minimal impact, really, to those businesses.
Well, they've already got some sidewalks in down there at the far end, and now they're like in the main area where a lot of the changes are going to take place, I guess, that they're digging up. So how long is this project going to take?
It'll take 2 months given good weather.
Right.
So,
right.
we expect it'll be wrapped up sometime after the first of the year. Again, depending on weather.
On what's going on.
Today's going to be a slow, bad traffic there. Right today, they're extending the storm drain across Merchant Street. So that's another minor improvement that we're doing. As part of it is we're improving the drainage on the south side by connecting the curb and gutter on that side to the drainage system on the north side. So
I'm glad
they're
you said
trenching
that.
across the street now. So.
Yeah, I saw them digging up the City Hall side of the street. I'm going, hey, wait a minute. I thought, and that's what they're doing, obviously.
That's what they're doing. And also on the City Hall side, there's a bus stop there, and the pavement was destroyed. So we're taking that out and putting in a concrete bus pad. So
Good.
Little bit of work on the north side.
So important message, those businesses are all open. You can still get a pizza or an enchilada or a bucket of screws or whatever you need is there.
Yep.
Or a funeral. So, because I think there's a funeral home in there too.
There is, yeah.
Yeah, you got a little bit of everything.
It's a one-stop shop.
Full,
yeah,
I was going to
right.
say. I got everything you possibly need over there, and they're all open. And drive safely when you're in that area. There's signs everywhere. I don't know how you could miss or not slow down. I mean, there's cones, there's reader boards, there's you name it. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I think people have been pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's slowing down, and we appreciate that always. So, yeah.
Good deal. Well, it's good. It's a good project. I'll be glad when it's finished. It'll probably make the street look a lot better too. So at least that side of the street, because it's kind of funky.
I think
over
it
there.
will actually when we're done. I mean, there's going to be parking on both sides of the street, which there are now. There is now parking on both sides. There will be striped bike lanes on both sides, which will be obviously better for those riding their bikes up and down Merchant Street. Again, that's not necessarily why we did the project,
No.
but it is a benefit of the
Right.
project. So.
Great. Okay, looking forward to it. So what else is going on Public Works? Anything else you guys got cooking out there we should know about?
Well, we switching to the maintenance side of that. So basically, the Merchant Street that was handled all by engineering services, and that was designed in house, by the way, and the construction's administered in house on the engineering services side. On the maintenance side of Public Works, a couple things just to let the public know about. With our parks, the Centennial Park, the baseball fields out there, because of the drought, we had restricted watering, and so a lot of the fields took a beating as far as, especially at Centennial with the grass infields, they pretty much died. So we actually did a pilot project out there on C3 and C4 where we completely dug up the entire infield. And we went with a subterranean irrigation system, specifically for turf. It's not a drip system like you would have under your landscaping, but it's specifically for turf. And so we put that grid down under the infield, regraded the infield, put down a new sod, and so we spent probably about $30,000 on that project. And like I say, it's a pilot project. If it works, we would look at expanding that throughout the city. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, that sounds like that's going to reduce water usage, because it's coming from underneath as opposed to...
Absolutely. That's the whole goal. It's less water. We don't have the evaporation. We don't have water going where we don't want it. For example, all over the dirt transitions and the baselines and all that. It will the water is under the turf where we want it. So there's also benefits to as far as field maintenance. It's not destroying the dirt areas.
Well, when I was in high school 100 years ago, we played on a few fields that were all dirt infields. It was strange to play on a regular field that was grass, the grass infield, pitcher's mound, and then the base paths, and then go to a school that was all dirt. It was almost like you didn't know where to stand, and the ball didn't look right. But
right.
I mean, you get used to it. But I thought that's what you were going to say. That's where we're going. I'm like, oh God, no.
No.
So I'm glad
no.
we're sticking with the traditional field.
Yes.
Although softball fields are like that, aren't they? Yeah.
Softball's dirt. C1 out there, we skinned that field and went from a grass infield to dirt, and I'll reserve my personal opinions on that one. But
okay.
There were reasons why it was done. Actually, the league had requested it because what it was going to do was allow us to have different size fields. So it's not that's a 90-foot base path field. We were going to be able to do 60, 70, and 90. So
sure.
But
I guess if you got grass, you're kind of limited.
You're more limited.
However far the grass goes, you can't. And I've seen it done, and it looks stupid. It doesn't really work. Now you got a base 30 feet in from the edge of the infield grass. That doesn't look right either. Right. So good. Well, that's good. All right. What else is going on? I heard we did some work at Keating too.
At Keating, also, we're trying to put some money into that park, which it badly needs it.
Yeah.
We recently, Brian McLean, over our public works superintendent, he just went through some negotiations where historically the prison has helped us to maintain that field, and we had a contract with them. We were able to renegotiate that contract. They still provide us services. They're a great help, especially with our creek maintenance and preparing for flooding and all that. But we took them out of Keating Park, and we went with a contract maintenance service over there using Dominguez right now, Dominguez Landscaping, and it's net savings to the city of about $50,000 to $60,000 a year. So what our plan right now is to take that money and roll that back for the next 5 years, roll that money back into the park, and as far as improvements to the park. So we've started that with several improvements going in over there.
Yeah, I was out there about a month ago taking some pictures, and there's some, you can see some work going on some of the fields. I think a lot of it was just regular maintenance. Some of it was obviously improvements, but it was like, wow, these fields, the outfield in one of the parks was, I don't know, looks like they would been playing football out there. Is that something we're going to address, or it was a lot of, I would not want to be running on that field. Of course, I'm an old man and I don't run much, but
part of the problem that we have in Vacaville is a shortage of, which Carrie would tell you, is a shortage of fields for our youth football. And so what they do, and especially at Keating, gets it a lot, is the outfield is used for football. So it does take its toll, because obviously when you're playing football, it's in the wet season, and so it tears up the grass. We do as much as we can to try to eliminate the chuck holes and and the trip hazards out there. But we are there. Several of the fields at Keating, they need to be overhauled, and just this past year we finished 2 of them, and then like I say, that we'll be moving through that program with the savings that we realized there.
Excellent. Plus Measure M passed.
Measure M.
That's got to help, right? I mean, here, this is part of the reason we needed Measure M. We're quality of life things like the parks. Keating Park, perfect example.
Measure M was huge, and I can't, I thank you to the public for supporting us on that, because that really that's money that's generated here, and it's controlled by our council, and it's spent here, and it's just it's huge. Just with the amount of Measure M that we had before, we were able to go. We just finished $1 million street rehabilitation project. Without that, we wouldn't have done it. We couldn't have done it.
Right.
And so now to know that's going to continue for 20 years and actually increase, it's, in fact, just meeting with the assistant city manager last week, we're talking about strategies for, how we're going to, about capital improvements, to facilities, to, water, well, not water and sewer, but streets, public buildings, that kind of thing. Yeah. Discussions that we wouldn't have been able to have and discussions that need to take place. So Measure M is huge.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's Three Oaks, Ulatis, those buildings. Certainly, Three Oaks is showing a lot of wear and tear. It needs a sprucing up. If it's going to be an asset, we need to take care of it. And now we'll be able to do it.
Yes, and
So.
we've been using a lot of Band-Aids, a lot of duct tape, and there's some major rehab needs to happen on a lot of facilities that Measure M will facilitate.
Great.
So.
Well, listen, thanks for the update on what's happening on Merchant Street, as well as the parks, and because those parks are important. Like you just said it, they get a lot of use. It's one of the things people love about our community is our parks. So thank you very much, Sean, for filling us in. And thank you for watching this episode of The Works. We'll see you next time.